Well, welcome everybody. Today we are back talking about our pain series. Today we are in the foot pain category, and this is our second video. So I am Dr. Kevin.
I'm Coach Sean.
And we are the FitHealth Pros. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about what we have going on. So our last video, part 1 of the foot pain, was about anatomy and heel pain, the ball of the foot and the arch and all the pains associated with those. So today what we're going to do is we're focusing on just the toes.
There's a lot.
Yep, Sean found so much information just on toes, we had to make a video just for that. And so here's what we found, that the more flexible and mobile a joint, the more prone to injury that it can be. So the toes are very small joints. They're used for controlling and propelling body weight and excess forces. So you can kind of see where they're going to be more susceptible to injury. So with that, let's get into the forms of toe pain.
So beginning forms of toe pain, we're going to start with gout. Gout is a form of arthritis where needle-shaped crystals of uric acid collect in the joint itself, in these toe joints. There can be severe pain and swelling. I had a buddy of mine whose father had gout, and it would just completely put him down.
Oh, it's very painful.
His foot was up and he's in a chair and just miserable because the pain is so extreme. So it's commonly the big toe. The best ways to kind of calm down a gout outbreak or flare-up would be rest, ice, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Prednisone is oftentimes prescribed for this and any kind of really intense arthritic flare-ups. Colchicine, and there is actually a specific gout diet, which is a little less rich than our normal American diet or other international diets, that can also kind of calm down gout. Next up, I want to talk about bunions. Bunions are a bony bulge along the edge of the foot. It can be from a misalignment of that first toe joint. With bunions, in order to get some of that pressure off of the bunion itself, you're going to really want to wear comfortable shoes, because oftentimes bunions can come about from ill-fitting shoes. It can also be hereditary. As people age, they can get worse, and people with bunions may also end up forming hammer toes, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit as well. So with these comfortable shoes, you may also want to have some special inserts to take some of that pressure off. The big toe oftentimes can go inwards. So if that gets really bad to where it's just so painful and even comfortable shoes aren't doing the trick, we could go right into surgery from there. Not necessarily right into surgery, but there could be surgery involved.
Before you get into hammer toes,
the
orthotics are pretty nice, because when you push up on the bottom of those arches, it actually moves that big toe out and starts to take that pressure off. And then there's kind of a cheat way of doing it too. You can get an ace bandage or just a wrap that has a flexible kind of tightness to it.
And that can also...
Yeah, you can slide that over the foot, and that tightness, almost like a compression, not a compression sock, but it's a compression sleeve.
Yeah.
They make them for the feet. It's designed to hold the arch up, but it's pretty cool because you slide that on, it squeezes, and you just watch that big toe come out.
It just automatically
comes out, and that can definitely kick the can down the road before surgery.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fox.
Another interjection.
But every time that he does, he comes up with some gold like that. So that's one of the reasons why please subscribe to us. There's always different things from our education and our experience that just helps the information along. So yeah, let's talk about the hammer toes next. Hammer toes, that's that second, third, and fourth toes where they bend at the middle joint for kind of a hammer-like appearance. Now there is these can come from a muscular imbalance or, again, ill-fitting shoes. So got to be careful, ladies especially, when you're wearing the high heels and they're really kind of pressing those toes together. It could end up creating different injuries, and from these injuries, the pain that we're talking about now. So you're going to want shoes with a wide, deep toe bed. There are different physical therapy type of exercises to help with hammer toes as well. And again, if it gets too bad, we're going down the surgery path again as a possibility. Last one I want to talk about in these initial 4 are claw toes. Now these are when toes point up or down and you're unable to straighten them out.
Oh.
Now, because of this, over time, you're going to have nerve damage within the toes. Oftentimes, it could be alcoholism or diabetes, which can kind of spur this on. With claw toes, it can end up weakening foot muscles. You're going to want to wear special footwear, or else more irritation, or possibly greater form calluses could end up forming. So you're going to want special footwear, inserts, different stretches possibly over time. And then of course, if it's alcoholism, please get help. Very serious addiction problem. And diabetes, please get help to help regulate that as well. And if it continues to get worse, or it just not getting there with the physical therapy and the exercises, etc., again, possible surgery.
Wow. Hopefully that one's rare.
It's it's enough to be in our video.
Yeah. All right.
And to pop up in multiple resources and different articles that I was reading about. Wow. So it's unfortunately too common.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some more toe pain. So
more toe pain.
This one is, if you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, you might have heard about this one. The turf toe.
Ouch.
And so it's an overuse injury caused by a strain. It's pain at the base of the toe. So it can be a form of sesamoid itis or sesamoid fracture. So that's the little bitty bones there in the toes. That's what they're called, sesamoids. To treat that, you want to rest, ice, you may need a boot, and this can linger. And I know, talking to Coach Sean, he knows about it from
it hurts bad.
The sports that he did.
Yeah, personal aside there. It's I had it when I was in high school, and it took me weeks to get back to a point where I could do a full force push off of that foot.
Wow.
So it sounds like turf toe, no big deal. It's very painful, and like Dr. Fox said, it can linger much longer than you would think.
Right.
It should, even when you're taking care of it.
Yeah, we don't think these things can make a big deal, but anyone who's injured a toe, it's just that small little thing can make a huge effect on your balance, sports, things like that. Mm-hmm. Next one, that one's, again, another big deal to a small area, the toe sprain. So that's going to be damage to the tendon or the soft tissue along the toe. If you jam your toe or you stub your toe, there's a chance you might have sprained it. Hopefully you didn't, and you jump around enough. I think that's the way you heal the stubbed toe, right? You jump
and you curse.
Cursing helps.
And you hold the foot up as you hop on one leg.
Right, and hopefully don't injure yourself more by falling down.
It's true.
So toe sprains, you're going to have pain, you're going to have swelling. Use that ice, the rest, elevate. Hopefully it goes away in a matter of days if it's not fractured. So we don't want that.
Yeah.
If it's fractured, you have to go get an x-ray. I guess that's what we're trying to say there. If it's lingering longer than a few days, look at
get it checked out, get an x-ray.
Checked out, get an x-ray.
Yep.
Toe fractures, speaking of fractures, a broken bone, minor fractures, you can ice and rest and elevate, take the NSAIDs again, and let her heal. Serious fractures, you may need surgery. You definitely want to immobilize, and sometimes if it's on the edge, if you're fracturing the toe, look to rule out any other fractures up the rest of the foot. I'm sure the foot doctor will do that. Yeah, because that's where you're going to see it go from maybe taping a couple of little toes to the full boot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't minimize it for sure, because it can be a serious thing. So the last one, no, it's not the last one. Last one in my section, we have more toe pain.
More toe pain!
This one's called hallux rigidus. Hallux rigidus. It is not a Harry Potter spell.
It could be, though.
It could be.
It affects the toe.
It affects the toe. So if you think about that, rigidus, rigid or stiff, it's arthritis of the big toe. And why it's not just called halluxitis, we have to complain to the complaint department.
Yes, the powers that be,
Yes.
please shorten this.
Yes.
But they won't. They're not listening.
Because I don't think I've ever heard of someone say, I have hallux rigidus.
Right.
But anyway, if you have arthritis at the base of the big toe, that's what it is. You're going to feel pain and stiffness in the joint. Now with arthritis, it's going to be a longer term issue, so it's going to worsen over time. You can take pain relievers. Here, some stretching goes a long way. So if it doesn't seem to go away ever, that's when you're going to seek that professional care, seek the diagnosis, make sure it's correct, and you may need surgery in some cases with this one.
Clean it up a little bit.
All right, and Sean, we have more.
Yet more toe pain.
Yes.
So these first couple that I want to talk about at this last little section of the video are pretty common. First one I want to talk about are corns. Now these are thick buildups of tough skin at the point of irritation or pressure on the toe itself or on the foot itself. Sometimes can look like horns, and that's corns. Corns look like horns. Next up, we're going to talk about calluses. It was kind of corny.
That's kind of corny.
We'll keep it at corny. Next up are calluses, where this is a wider area of tough skin buildup. Again, result of an irritation or a pressure on a specific area of the foot or the toes. It can come from ill-fitting footwear. In order to kind of knock those down a little bit, you're going to want to soak the feet, possibly use a pumice stone, just to kind of get some of that dead skin off and make it less thick. Lastly, I want to talk about sesamoid fractures. How's that for a transition?
Sesamoid.
I was thinking sesamoid fracture.
Uh-huh.
Now this is a break in those small bones that are embedded in the tendons that are attached to the big toe. You'll get pain in and around that big toe, and in order to kind of knock that pain down, you're going to, again, rest, ice, elevation, some of the classic ways to knock down that inflammation in order to knock down the pain. You're going to want stiff-soled shoes, possibly utilize some foot pads and good old-fashioned pain relievers to just be able to deal with it until it starts healing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there's pretty much only so much you can do in healing those tiny little bones. It just takes time.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want to talk about with the toe pain, and like I said, and Dr. Fox said, when I found all of this information and all these different pains in the toes, they get worse over time. Now, oftentimes we may try to ignore toe pain, but the danger in that is that it can really set some imbalances in motion throughout the kinetic chain,
Right.
because your gait starts changing and you start putting more pressure on the knees, on the ankles, on the hips, on the back. And so you end up with more problems over time. So please, if you do have toe pain, don't ignore it. Get a doctor's diagnosis before these imbalances start to creep in.
All right. Thanks. That's important information. That is good advice.
Grazie.
Good advice. So yeah, I think we both see people who have those injuries. Well, I do after the fact. You do kind of maybe before, maybe during.
Before, during, and after.
And
yeah.
after.
Yeah.
So I think we have a newfound respect for the foot doctor.
Big time.
After seeing all of these things,
This is just the toe.
I'm glad I became a chiropractor. But someone's gotta help you with your toes and your feet.
Big time.
But so hopefully that you got something out of this. Maybe we brought a type of toe pain out that you have and you just weren't sure what it was.
Right.
We'll be talking about injury prevention and other foot pains and even the specialists that you can go to. And I think the injury prevention is going to be real important, because what I noticed in a lot of these, it was kind of like take that medication, and that one kind of sticks with me because you don't want to have a lingering toe pain where you're just NSAID, and just taking these.
Popping medication.
We need to figure out how to get to the get off the medication. And some of these were kind of traumas, but a lot of these I think can be prevented. Diet, exercise, stretching ahead of time.
Type of shoes you're wearing.
Type of
You know, a
shoes.
lot of these came from the type of shoes that you're wearing, which is self-induced
Yeah,
pain.
right. So look for the next video, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell that gives you the notification, and you will see the next one come up. But if you did get something from that, and please smash that like button.
Like us.
Like us. And I am Dr. Kevin,
I'm Coach Sean.
and we're the Fit Health Pros. And again, we thank you very much for spending your time watching our videos, and we will see you next time.
Until next time.
Welcome, everybody.
Very natural, flowing, graceful.